All right, welcome to our very first member call of 2023. Thank you very much for finding the time, Amanda Skura from Audi of America, for this Q&A. Over to you.
Thank you. I'm always pleased to be here. I love this group, and I'm not just saying that. Everyone who's worked with me before knows that I'm pretty honest and open, but I've always loved the discussion and being able to kind of ping ideas off. So as much as I'm going to kind of present what we have planned for this year, I also really enjoy getting to hear from you and also getting challenged in some areas, right? Like, why are you considering this? Why aren't you considering this other thing? So I'm going to show a couple slides. I'll intro myself a little bit. I've been in the space for about 15 years. My background was hospitality. So I came from a few different hospitality companies, Marriott, and previously kind of an agency that supported that, and moved to Audi almost 8 years ago. My team, it's a little bit of a niche team where we kind of sit a little between the front end and what it looks like and, some of the more traditional kind of back end tech. We kind of hodgepodge together a lot of the experience technology, the marketing technology, e-commerce. We work on authentication, so creating an account and authenticating yourself. So I have responsibility over all of that with product managers and then delivery teams under that. As well as last year, about maybe 2 years ago, we pulled Salesforce under the umbrella as well. So looking at Salesforce as CRM and putting that kind of into our ecosystem, it didn't make sense for that to kind of sit outside of some of these other areas. So we kind of pulled that in. What we really look to do, because we do kind of sit in between, is really create capabilities and features that help enable the teams doing the front end, right? We don't necessarily care what the configurator looks like in the automotive space, but we want to make sure that all of the data needed for the configurator needs to get to the front end so that they can use it and, visualize the car as the customer is kind of going through their journey. We always look at creating scalable solutions, not one-offs, and supporting not only end customers that are buying the car, but we really have a really unique use case where our customers a lot of the time are internal employees, either leveraging the tools like a Salesforce where they're creating journeys and emails and personalization journeys for customers, or the dealerships. So the dealer employees that need to ultimately sell the car. What can we enable them, or what can we get them more information so that they're able to more easily work with the customers? Some of this you may have seen before if you've heard me speak, but we really focus around a shop, buy, and own journey. And the goal is, previously it was this funnel and you put them in the sales funnel and they came out the end and that was it. But we really looked at switching the sales funnel probably about 5 years ago to more of an infinity diagram. So we want them to shop, we want them to buy and own and consume, but we also need to get them back into the shopping journey. So understanding where they are in their, lifetime loyalty and experience with Audi became really, really important, where previous to that, and I think it was the same all around, sell the car, don't worry about after that. And now it's not. It really is kind of an interaction and a lifetime with that customer that is more important than that car sale. So we really look at providing the customer freedom. And when we say that, COVID definitely skewed this as well. Previously, customers went into a dealer for certain aspects of the car buying journey, but on an Amazon, on, the web commerce providers worldwide, like that's not what happened. They went to the internet, they went to the web, they went to the URL, and they purchased whatever they were trying to buy, and they knew what was in stock and what wasn't. And it wasn't the same, right? It really was, there was a brick and mortar step for the customers that they actually hated. So COVID really forced auto to kind of, figure some of this out and really try to work with the dealership to kind of allow the customer to co-browse. And when I say that, it's get brand information from the brand site, but also have exposure to what the customer or what the dealer has on the lot so that you can transact the sale. So really kind of allowing the customer to do steps in the journey where they want to. If they're at home and they want to browse and configure, they can't. If they happen to be able to stop by the store and they want to browse on, a really large TV screen in the dealer, they can. If they want to start their credit app online, but maybe they have a couple questions and they want to go in and finish it online or in the dealer needs to be able to pull that information and see where the customer is kind of in that. And I think I'm talking to people who fully understand that. That's hard, right? That's a lot of data access and accessibility that we hadn't done before, right? That's a lot of privacy conversations. That's a lot of security questions to really enable kind of this, middleware layer, I'll say, that has all of that information that either our Audi USA website's getting or the dealer website's getting, right? And so then really looking at transacting quickly and an efficient sales process, getting the customer all they need to know so that they can make a decision. And then during the own phase, really allowing them to see products, services, some of the digital products that we're offering in the space and kind of getting them back into the journey. So we really look at kind of building more of a, I'd say, digital ecosystem, right? Where we make purchasing painless, we give customers control, and we also make owning and driving effortless. And from my team's perspective, we really look at that as one, thinking about customers. I don't know about all of you, but we really lost touch with customers during COVID, right? Or we formed a different relationship with them. It was always virtual, and we really miss getting to do customer intercepts and actually hear customers tell us what they thought about something before it went live, right? Not being able to do that, our product managers and a lot of the product team members, right, they felt a little out of touch. Like, what are we building this for? I don't even get to. And so we started making a lot of assumptions, right? We had to. And so this year, it's really about focusing on getting back out and talking to the customers, whether those are those internal ones I talked about or the end user who's kind of buying the car. We want to find ways to test and start talking to customers again. The second theme that we're really focused around is connected data and access. When we build something, we want to think about where the data is going, where it could be used in the future. And we're really pushing kind of, I think previously we looked at a little bit more of a microservices approach. We really want to look at kind of domain-driven services and what's the purpose of this service? How do we get the data to that place? And could it be expanded in the future to include additional ones? And I'll give you a great example. We were trying to put something in My Audi, which is our owner's portal, and the service was built only, by a different team kind of internally just to show this one subscription. But if you are a Audi owner, you could have subscriptions for 5, 6, 7 different things. And so instead of considering building a subscription service that based on the identifier shows everything that customer has subscribed to, we built one service for one specific subscription that we then realized wouldn't be able to scale to anything else. And so really trying hard. It met the needs, it met the objective for the year, but just thinking a little bit differently about how we kind of position things. Another big aspect of work is, as we start online buying and dipping our toe farther into that pond, we need to show the customer more of what they've configured or purchased. And behind the scenes, all of the product data is, gibberish, right? Letter codes and different, XXX for a black car. And a customer is not going to be that's not usable to them whenever they log into their My Audi account to see the car that they've started an online buying process or that they've put a deposit down. And so that mapping and making sure that into Salesforce, we actually push the data that's going to be customer friendly, that they're actually going to be able to see that they configured a Mythos black car and not XXX is really important to kind of that overall perspective that the customer has and that trust that they're building with the brand. And then the last theme is e-commerce. Yes, it's been a theme for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, but it's still around and it's still about refining kind of what we had. I think we enabled quickly an online shopping commerce really quickly, like during COVID, of how do I browse and get and pick my VIN faster. But now it's really about refining kind of one-click purchase if you already have an account. How do I get Apple Pay to allow me to place a deposit? I mean, I would love to be in a world where everybody has enough money in their bank account to Apple Pay for their whole car, but that's not exactly where we are. So how do we enable some of these, higher tech functions, these ease of use into the car buying journey is really important to us this year, and really bridging that gap between the online process and kind of that dealer experience without taking away anything from the dealer, right? We want to partner with them. We don't want to take that sale kind of away from them. So these are really, I would say, like the biggest bucket areas that we're really looking at. And sure, I could get on here and talk to you about NFTs and Web 20.0 and whichever version that we're on. But in automotive, we're quiet innovators, I'll say, right? Something innovative is a little bit more about connecting dots between systems than it is, providing a customer with an NFT and a token. Our demographic just doesn't necessarily all see that. And so how do you balance building for a broader set of people who are going to buy your car, and also tie in some of those moments with some of this newer technology for the customers that it appeals to, right? Of course, we have customers that want NFTs and want a token, but that isn't our broad set. Of course, we have customers who want to buy a car online. But how often are you going to go end to end and push a button and your car shows up? That's a smaller percentage. And so our team really does need to balance, how do we enable the other teams to do their jobs, but also not falsely focus on, the 5% of our customer base in kind of some of these technology conversations. So that is all the slides I have today.
That's good. I'm going to let you perhaps get a sip of your cup of coffee. I saw you there's an Audi cup of coffee there. How nice.
Always branded, right?
Even in the home office. And then, Martin, you had a question. Do you want to just briefly ask?
Yeah.
Away?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So the question is, does your team also work on the monetization of the data of cars? Is that also part of your team? Yeah.
Good question. It's not. We really kind of make that data accessible, but we have a different team. And a lot of times it's a little disjointed now, where the team who owns the data set is really tasked with all of the legal conversations around being able to do that, the security questions, right? We see that that's going to be a bigger area in the future, but we haven't kind of holistically, and because you spend 3, 4, 5 months in the legal discussion, right? And then my team kind of comes in and maybe builds the service, and is that open to third parties or not third parties? So we really fall in the implementation side of it now. But I think longer term, in general, Volkswagen Group will need to have a perspective on how do we do that, because it can be a completely different work stream from what we're talking about, which is more of like the web and the customer experience.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Any other questions, comments, reflections? Feel free, like Martin, to write in the chat, or you can use the raise hand feature. You said in the think about customer, if we take part of the description that you didn't really talk so much about, was this startup mentality.
Yes.
It sounds always tempting, be like the others, the grass is always greener, but what does that mean more specifically?
Sure. I think for me, I want to build a team of kind of mini CEOs of their areas, right? And I think a lot of times, once you're in a corporation, and I love working for Audi, I love the big brand, right? But there's also a lot of red tape that you have to get through to kind of end up launching or building something, right? Or sometimes if you're partnering with, a development agency, you're the one, like you're the business liaison trying to kind of get through all of that. And sometimes it's daunting. And I see my team, they just want to build something that they can launch, and they just want to get it out there, and they're stuck with did this pass the security assessment? Like, what else? Here's this spreadsheet that the security team wants us to do. And we completely understand why that they have us do that, to make sure that we can roll this out. But on the flip side, right, it's a little anti-product and it's a little anti what they're used to. And I bring something to market, I make sure it's something customers like, where now I spend 4 hours in a legal conversation. And so trying to give them a glimmer of hope, right, on, think more, have a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit whenever you're doing this, will help with the red tape, but keeping them kind of a little bit more excited around it. And then also on the more agile working model, again, I get that that's not necessarily new to industry, but when you're taking, teams who have worked in waterfall on big internal systems for years and years and years, the change takes a couple years, right? It's not necessarily instant that everyone's working in agile with a product mentality. So my team actually becomes teachers, right? And so they're actually teaching the other teams as they're asking them to deliver for them. And that's a little bit where we kind of pull in, what if I worked at a startup? How would I explain the processes that I work to actually get things done?
Great. And then we have another question here from Sanne, talking about what you mentioned, going from the classical sales funnel to the infinity loop. Have you put some economic value to that? Have you succeeded in that? Can you tell us more about that, just being,
so we have KPIs around the infinity diagram now, right? And that might be starting with an offsite ad that you can see. And I'm happy to share maybe a little bit of a ghosted version after the call, so that you can see that. But in a dashboard, we actually have kind of a rolling infinity diagram that has KPIs around it. And based on that, like if it's a branded marketing campaign, ideally we should see this many leads submitted, right? Just out of interest. And so we're tracking kind of how that works. Dealership calls, from a dealership call previously, we should have seen this many dealer visits. Now we're actually seeing follow-up phone calls instead of a dealership visit coming out of COVID. And then mapping down to actually after purchase, how many subscription sales have we done on services available to that vehicle? So it's kind of all tracked in an online kind of login dashboard view, and that's all built. I see Tableau for a lot of great uses, but for some of the web pieces, we decided to build a custom React dashboard that allows us to input data and the different KPIs a little bit faster than being able to provide access to Tableau from a login perspective. So we do have a lot of that enabled. So I'll see what I can share kind of from a highest level so that you can see all of the different KPIs we're tracking.
Awesome. Sanne, I know I kind of didn't treat you equal to Martin, which got, the opportunity to state his question himself. Was that okay, Sanne? Did you get the answer?
That was very fine. And Amanda, I would really like, or if you could share just something in a ghosted version, that would be of interest, definitely. So thanks a lot for answering.
So the ghosted thing, are we going to do that as a follow-up? I'll put it in the highlights blog post, Amanda, or do you have something at your fingertips?
I'll see if I can pull something that's more of like the design of it so that you can see it. I don't know exactly what we have, but.
All right. And then while we're doing that, Olivia from Frankfurt, actually.
Yes, greetings from Germany. We all know that German car manufacturers, and Audi is one of them. They offer like actually highly customizable, you can, there's nothing you can't configure in a German car actually. So we all know, and if we look at let's say the e-mobility juggernaut, Elonsky Motors, I guess, they were pretty successful on doing online sales. Actually, but we're a little bit comparing peers to Apple's, right? It's way more difficult to sell an Audi or do a BMW or Mercedes or whatever fine car you would like to buy online than selling a Tesla that just has 3 models, and you can choose a color and maybe the rims, if they're dark or metal. So I think what is more interesting for me is like actually what's on your mind actually to say, is there a way, okay, do we need to maybe change the way a little bit of how the car manufacturer has to operate a little bit, to say, okay, we might need to sell more pre-configured configurations for people, or pre-built, and I know also that the North American market is a little bit more different than the European market, and so Americans tend to buy more cars that are, they're off the shelf, whereas Germans, they like to wait 10,000 of months for a car. So I hope you get a little bit, it's a very complex.
You like speak to my heart, because even having conversations with Audi AG, right? They really focus on an agency model, which is they can sell direct, and a lot of the other markets can, and we can't. And so when you start talking about an experience like the Teslas of the world and the other EVs that are coming out, like they're selling direct, and they have a lot of control over their product packaging. Right? We do to some aspect, but we also have to sell on behalf of the dealer, right? So money can't necessarily change hands from Audi to the dealer, because the dealers are the actual selling, they're the legal entity that's selling the vehicles. So we did, I will say, on product packaging in 2018, we launched a configure to order EV reservation tool. And from I can convert and make a reservation, the customers loved it. Like, we had really, really great feedback on it. But they built a lot of really complex kind of Easter eggs, we call them, when those are those cars that are kind of overly configured. And in overly configuring a vehicle, the price point is significantly higher than maybe what we would have billed from a more simple product offering, right? And so we've had a lot of cars, once we went through credit checks and kind of the pricing, where the customer no longer wanted them. So they did sell to other customers, but there was kind of a lag in those cars getting produced and them getting sold. And so we have looked into now, one, if it is something kind of pre-production, how do we package that vehicle differently so it's easy? So there's 2 or 3 options, and maybe they pick colors within there. But also, I think where our focus really has been is the VINs that are already produced, that are, at port or kind of on the boat coming over, or on a rail coming from Mexico. How do we sell those online versus kind of going back a little bit farther for this wait period that you talked about? We found that US consumers don't want to wait more than 3 months for their vehicles. They just don't. So as much as we're like, it's this hottest car, they don't want to wait 3 to 6 months to build that and have that come over. So by enabling and focusing a little bit more on, this is a produced VIN, the customer can start buying it. We kind of brought in that timeline to more of a 3-month scale, and also allowed ourselves to enable the online sales process to focus around cars we already had built, not cars that the consumers were going to build for themselves, which we didn't find a lot of success with previously.
So we're coming up at the end, Amanda. If you, I don't know, have better multitasking skills than me, that's quite easy. But if you wanted to show something as a cliffhanger here towards the end on the KPIs or economic value, do you need like a few seconds, or?
I don't know if I have anything, and I'd rather you be able to show the recording than me show something on the screen that I won't be able to.
If you find something vanilla, you can then send it to me, and I can weave it into the post with the highlights, and we stay in this same atmosphere and spirit of not getting you into trouble and making you look good.
Thanks.
So how about this point about mini CEOs, Thomas Dugaro? How does that sound to you, joining, from RTL in Hamburg? Mini CEOs. Would you like to have mini CEOs on your team?
Well, I hope I do. Well, the funny part is they love to be mini CEOs, but then they meet all the other mini CEOs, and you have to make sure it's not a mini kindergarten as well. So no, but honestly, it's got a lot to do with transmitting well, the right to decide things and making decisions by yourselves, and there's a lot of opportunity to grow for people to grow in that. There's a lot of opportunity for products to become better in that, but it takes a while. But it can really pay out. So good luck.
Thank you, Thomas. Anybody else have any closing? I think we have a little bit of time left, but I think the time allows for pretty much like yes or no questions. But anybody could also be just reflections in general.
Yeah, maybe just a quick question. Building up on this discussion about the KPI through the infinity loop. I'm doing this work for our company, and beyond KPIs, it's also interesting to define the key moments, right, in the customer experience, and standardize a little bit what those moments are, so that you can then apply KPIs to them, as well as when you collect customer data. Obviously, the data model and the level of standardization of the data model for modeling a customer, or in our case, also modeling the company that is buying from us. And I was wondering if you have some thoughts about that, in particular in a group like Volkswagen. I would assume that you might have different levels of standardization for the customer experience and the customer master data. So it's a big question for 1 minute left, but if you have some material on that, I would very much welcome it.
Sure. Well, I will say that we did move from kind of what was, lead submission KPI focus, which was you filled out a form about, 7 years ago, to what we're calling high value actions now, and really looking at, more attribution to car sales versus customers did this. And I say that I'm oversimplifying, of course, but a customer doing an inventory search at 2 to 3 dealers is probably going to buy within 2 weeks, right? Like, we've been able to kind of package that together and see that if you can get more people into an inventory search, you're probably going to see a better conversion with that action than somebody viewing the model landing page of the vehicle, right? They're still browsing, right? So we've really built out a lot more around those high value actions, and also then offsite retargeting from them. So if I've already started doing it, what do I do next? And how do I kind of push people into that next piece? And that's been our focus versus like, I created a My Audi account. Check, right? Like, I think we had KPIs in the past that were a little bit check boxes, and now we have more of kind of numbers of scale where we're really pushing to get more people into inventory. And if we get more people into inventory, we'll see more people at the dealer and we'll see more conversions, right? And what do those percentages kind of look like and how those are tied together? On the customer data model, I could do a 4-hour talk on that. We really look right now around kind of the brick and mortar profile initially on like, I'm a My Audi account, but we have a lot more what we're calling a digital data model, and whatever you choose to call it, it has a lot more tied. We use Adobe to the Adobe web behavior data and what they're doing, and tying kind of the owner to that, what was previously an unknown profile, right? And that kind of picture of what they're doing really allows us to see what they're doing on dealer websites, what they're doing on our website, what they're doing in the My Audi app, what they're doing within My Audi, and being able to start looking at behavior a little bit broader than owner, non-owner, right? And that's, I think, where we were before, but we've really kind of expanded it. So that's what I'll say now for this short amount of time. But
thank you, Amanda.
Hopefully some of this resonated. Sure, I'd love to be, one of the more innovative in the car industry, but I think that we've really carved out a niche where we can be innovative in pockets where we are able to, but also kind of leaning into trying to slowly change the industry to a kind of a more modern commerce purchase process, which is what really I think customers ultimately are asking for.
On that note, thank you, Amanda. We made it right on time. Perfect. Thanks for the insights. Could be a new tradition coming that will start the year, hearing on from building foundation to expansion to the next level. For now, once again, thank you, Amanda, for sharing. Thanks everybody for joining. Really appreciate it.
Take care.